All right, 7:04. Let's get started here. So I just want to introduce the coaches who are generous enough to give us their time tonight. First, at least from what I can see, from my left to my right, I have Coach Janine Calhoun, the head women's soccer coach at Ursinus College, right up the road in Collegeville. We have Coach Jim Clements. Sorry, he is the head football coach at Kutztown University. We have Coach Brett Arnold. He is the assistant director of player relations at Penn State football. And last but not least, we have Coach Justin Holman. He is the associate head coach of women's basketball at Kutztown University. Coaches, could you please go down the line, restate your name, your title, your university, and tell us how you got to your current role and what are your responsibilities, throughout your job. If Janine, Coach Calhoun, if you want to start, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. My name's Janine Calhoun. I'm the head women's soccer coach at Ursinus College, as mentioned, in Collegeville, PA. My job is unlike many Division III schools where you'll sometimes see head coaches having multiple responsibilities. Mine is strictly head coaching and everything that falls under that umbrella. And I've been there for 3 years. Prior to that, I coached at the high school level, elite club level, Division I level, and was at home for a little bit as well.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Arnold, if you don't mind going next.
Yes, thank you for having me, Pat. Brett Arnold, Assistant Director of Player Relations and Recruiting at Penn State Football. In that role, I handle most of the NIL for our players, along with recruiting players and also initial eligibility for NCAA. From the Chamonix High School, so right in your area. Played football at University of Massachusetts. Have been in college athletics for 15 years. 8 years at Rutgers University, where I was the director of football operations there. Spent 2 years at Sam Houston State University in Texas as the director of football operations. And then 3 years ago was at University of Delaware as the general manager and assistant AD for football. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Brett. Coach Holman, you want to go next, please? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. Justin Holman, associate head coach for the women's basketball team at Kutztown University. Just finished up my 13th season there at Kutztown. Prior to that, was down at Piedmont College down in Georgia, Division III school, coaching the men's basketball team down there. Before that, coached both boys and girls high school basketball, pretty local to North Penn, both at Perk Valley High School and my alma mater, Upper Perk High School. So, I've been at Kutztown for 13 years, handle everything from on-court responsibilities, off-court responsibilities, academics, as well as the recruiting coordinator for our women's basketball program.
Thank you, Coach. And again, last but not least, Coach Jim Clements, if you don't mind going next.
Yeah, Jim Clements, head football coach, Kutztown University. Just finished up my 10th season at Kutztown. Prior to that, I was the head coach at Delaware Valley College, right down the road from North Penn in Doylestown. I was there for 10 seasons. And prior to that, I was at Widener University in Chester, Pennsylvania for about 10 years in various roles as a graduate assistant all the way up to assistant head coach. So been at 3 spots in the last 30 years, all in college, Division III and Division II. And as the head football coach at these levels, we wear plenty of hats. We're doing everything. So
great. Thank you, Coach. So go down the line. If I'm going to talk about the NCAA Eligibility Center very quickly for our student athletes. And if you guys want to chime in about what you see from the NCAA Eligibility Center, that'd be great. So the NCAA Eligibility Center is a website through the NCAA that talks about what student athletes need to be eligible at certain levels. So at the Division I level, student athletes need to have 16 core courses, which fall into the English, social studies, math, science, and world language categories. For those 16 core courses, you need to have 4 English, and then 3 in math, 2 in social studies, 2 in science, and then the rest fall into that category somewhere else. At the Division I level, you need a 2.3 minimum GPA of just those 16 core courses. At the Division II, you need a 2.2 minimum GPA in those core courses. And then Division III, they don't have any guidelines for GPA or core courses, but most Division III schools have higher academic standards to begin with. And I can state that for Ursinus, a phenomenal school that definitely has some higher academic standards, a lot of medical programs at Ursinus, and our students here who want to attend their GPAs typically are higher, and the ones who get accepted are higher GPAs. When should a student athlete create an account? And that depends on what the coaches say. I think the end of sophomore year is a very good time to create that account. And the way it works here at North Penn is you create the account, you let me know, or Mr. Turner, who is our secondary NCAA liaison. He's also a guidance counselor in the building. You let one of us know that you've created the account, and we will upload your transcript at the end of each school year to make sure that you have your documents in order so that coaches can see that and you can go on any visits that are necessary. So coaches, based off of that and the NCAA Eligibility Center, even though there is a minimum GPA, how important is it for student athletes to have a higher GPA to be able to give you, as coaches, the best chance to recruit them, and what that looks like when you're recruiting a student athlete from the academic side?
I'll go first. At Kutztown, I mean, obviously, we're a Division II school, so we do have athletic scholarships. We are extremely limited with what we have to work with at our school. I think you're allowed 36 full scholarships for football. We're working with about 9.5 at Kutztown. So the academic end of it is huge for us. We do have academic scholarships that is given out to students from our admissions department, to where we can stack those scholarships to make that end all be all what you're paying out of pocket reasonable for a family to attend KU. So when we're out recruiting, we're obviously looking for kids with 3.0s or better, because those kids are going to at least qualify for our low level academic scholarship, which then we can stack, along with other grants and aids to make it affordable for your son or daughter to go to Kutztown.
Thanks.
I would say for us here at Penn State, we're looking for the total package in a student athlete, and obviously academics is really important to us. We understand that no one's perfect, but when we're rating kids and we're looking at a kid that might have, be on the borderline eligibility wise versus a kid who might have let's say a 3.0, a 3.5, it's going to be a factor in our decision. So, like I said, we kind of evaluate everything in our program, whether that's academically, socially, obviously athletically, but it's a huge factor for us when we're comparing kids, because a lot of times kids are pretty equal in the athletic ability. However, one has a 3.0 and the other one might have a 2.0. So we're always putting that into consideration.
I think our approach, and really this has been my approach, whether I was at LaSalle, the D1 school, or now at Ursinus, I'm just a believer that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And we're looking for, student athletes who take their academics very seriously. And that doesn't mean for everybody that that's a 4.0, but that they're dedicated to their academics and dedicated to their athletics. I think from a women's soccer perspective, I think the number is like 7% of high school soccer players will go on to play at the college level, Division I, II, or III. And whether it's Division I, II, or III, the overwhelming majority of money is going to come from academic. You have a much better chance of getting academic money than you do athletic money. So I don't think we could stress enough the importance of keeping your grades up and doing everything you can to achieve academic excellence.
I won't piggyback too much on what Coach Clements said, because obviously at Kutztown, we're dealing with a lot of the similar things that he is in terms of academics, but in terms of the eligibility center and, when you should do it. And, I know with AAU basketball, a lot of times, you have to be part of the eligibility center in terms of an amateurism account early on when you're playing, and then eventually we'll have to transfer that account over. I think the biggest thing when being recruited if you are in the eligibility center early, you have all your information in there, it becomes a lot easier during that recruiting process when you do go to visit a campus or to have your transcripts submitted on time for us as coaches to evaluate both your academic profile, in addition to your academic profile. If those things are already done ahead of time and are time sensitive, that really helps the whole recruiting process, as opposed to waiting to the last minute, making sure you have all the right classes. And obviously, that's a process that student athletes will go through in high school with their guidance counselor. And I think it's just something that, the earlier you start on that stuff, a lot easier it is, instead of playing catch up at the end.
That's great advice from all of our coaches. Something else I'll add on from the North Penn side, and colleges will say this, college admissions office will say, we want to see students that challenge themselves and take the AP classes. But if you take an AP class and you get a D, that's not helping you. My advice is take the classes in which you're going to get A's and B's in and give yourself the best chance to get a higher GPA to make yourself as marketable as possible. So we have a lot of high school student athletes here at North Penn, and they got to start reaching out to coaches at some point. It's the only way they're going to get seen for the most part. When should a student athlete start reaching out to you as coaches?
Who's taking it? Janine, you got it.
Yeah. So at our level, we do have freshmen who reach out to us. And I would say it's never too early, but at our level, we probably wouldn't do a whole lot more than send you, information about ID camps, just general update emails until your sophomore or more likely your junior year. Unlike Division I and Division II, for Division III, we are allowed to have phone conversations once you become a ninth grader. That's different at D1 and D2, but that's pretty much where we start. That might vary a little bit from sport to sport, but I would say from my experience, sophomore and junior year are times that we start identifying talent.
Yeah, I think here at Penn State, per NCAA rules, June 15th after sophomore year is when we can respond and communicate with our prospects. So it's never too early. You can send, direct messages, emails with, whether it's your highlight film, your Twitter account, transcripts are great, but we can't officially have communication until June 15th after your sophomore year. So we can kindly say we received this, and per NCAA rules, we can't speak to you now. But that is the reason for that. We can send out some camp information and different things like that, but the full communication comes June 15th after sophomore year for us.
Yeah, we usually don't really get heavy into the recruiting process with individuals until they're going into their junior year. And even then at our level, we usually are working, we're working on our 26 kids right now, where a lot of your higher levels are probably almost done with their 26s and on to their 27s, depending on your sport. For us, it's about that early communication. If they send us a personal email, I always think that goes a long way. So we get tons of emails from different types of recruiting services. You couldn't imagine how many emails that we get every day. When it comes specifically from an individual, I'll usually reply to them personally. Our coaches do. If they're a younger kid, we'll give them our information about our prospect camps. But the real true recruiting process really is not going to start till they're, that summer going into their junior year. And even then, a lot of those kids have they want to all go to Penn State. They all want to go to Division I schools. So when that thing starts to trickle down effect, and we can probably get in on some more kids, right before their senior season. And the way I look at it for our sport, it's great. It's amazing. My daughter plays field hockey, and they start so early. And it's amazing to me, like for our sport, the growth from a junior to a senior is unbelievable. And you may look at a kid's film their junior year, and not be so impressed with that kid, and then turn that kid's film on third game of the senior season, and it's a totally different player because he's just gotten so much better and developed so much, and maybe really started to care about it a little bit more. So, that senior year for us is huge. That fall season, we really like to have an idea of our top kids. That way we can invite those guys up to home games so they can kind of get a feel for what our university is all about, what our game day atmosphere is about. They can see our kids up close and personal. They may think about Division II as, it's not as big as Division I, obviously, but at our level in our football at Kutztown, we've got some guys that could be playing at a higher level. So when those guys get on our campus, they really get a good understanding on the type of student athlete that we have at KU. So we usually start that junior year and get really heavy into that senior year, but it seems like it's getting sooner and sooner every year that we're really rolling on this, but the earlier, the better.
Yeah, and I think the when really does depend, Patrick, on the sport and kind of I'm only saying this because I coached both sides, and Jim sort of just brought it up with his daughter versus his football players, but the women sports tend to reach out a lot earlier than some of the men's sports. June 15th, like Brett said, for us as well, after your sophomore year is the first time we're allowed to reach out to contact you, whether that be phone, email, direct messaging. Now, as Brett said, you are allowed to send any kind of email, highlight film, that sort of stuff. We are allowed to respond. We just can't continue on with that conversation. I know at Kutztown, back to a little bit of the scholarship thing, for us, building those relationships is hugely important. So a lot of times we will like to, we'll watch players as their freshman and sophomore years, build a board, people that we're interested in, or to Jim's point, if you send a personal email out versus a scouting service that's just sending it to 200 some coaches, I know within the women's basketball program, that's something that we always respond to. We'll get back to, and make sure we evaluate that player. And then, following June 15th, really start that recruiting process, that relationship building, so that when it gets to the point where a student athlete is making a decision, it's just more than the scholarship amount, because no one on our team is getting full scholarships. So it's really to Coach's point about being on campus, making sure it's the right fit. What is the financial aspect? What is the academic aspect? And the earlier you can start that process with coaches, just to put yourself on their radar, I think the better.
Thank you. I will add one thing here. When our student athletes, and I help student athletes, so parents and student athletes, I have stock letters that I give the student athletes to make their own, to reach out to the coaches, to make sure that what they need is in the email or in the communication when they're sending out to coaches. And my only rule that I have is that you get the coach's name right and you get the school right. How many times, coaches, have you open an email and it's the wrong coach's name or it's the wrong school? Because that is, in my mind, that as a coach, somebody who coached here for years, I've never coached at college level, but I coached here multiple sports for almost my entire career here. I would never respond. I just would not do that. And I by the head nodding of the coaches, I would assume it's the same. Years ago, I had a student athlete who was emailing Purdue, and at the bottom of his email said, "Go Big Blue for Michigan." He did not hear back from that coach. So moving along. So again, student athletes, parents, please make sure that you're being diligent when you're emailing. Personal emails, as coaches said, is extremely important, but make sure the names are correct and the schools. Speaking of communication and reaching out and being marketable, how important, and I one of the coaches, I think, Brett, you mentioned Twitter. One of the coaches, whatever it's called now, X, one of the ways that students can market themselves is through social media. How important is social media in the recruiting process, and whether it's good social media or bad social media? So if you could talk to that, and Brett, why don't you go, since you mentioned Twitter yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a main factor. I think, we do a lot of investigating on social media. You hear from the NFL all the time, all the scouts saying, we're following them on X, we're following them on, all these different platforms. We do the same thing here. If we're going to invest a scholarship in a student athlete and invest time and energy, we're going to do our due diligence with them. So I think it's huge to make sure that your social media reflects who you are, because we can find out a lot of information about a student athlete or prospective student athlete by its social media. And also, I will say, put the correct information on your header. What high school you go to. Don't use nicknames. Use your first and last name, because people follow us all the time and we don't know who Big Nick is. Put your first and last name. Put your huddle link. Put everything in there and make it professional, because we are judging everything you do. So I really do think it's a major factor for us. We look at that. Our coaching staff's on it. Our recruiting staff is all over social media. So we track it pretty heavily here at Penn State, and it is a factor. So it could be a benefit for you, or it could be not so good for you. So we definitely look into it and make sure you have the proper name. That kills me every time. Big Nick. I want to know who Big Nick is.
I think I can jump in here. Social media, from a college standpoint, we use it a lot to market our program, and I think used the right way is definitely a huge one of those boxes that we definitely check. You could average 20 and 10. If you're putting stuff up on your social media that maybe we shouldn't be making a judgment on necessarily, but that's what you're putting out there. That's unfortunately your first impression that you could be putting out there. And I know there's been a lot of times where we have a great player, we saw him on the court, the way they act is fine, and then there's some things on social media that tell us a different story, and we don't typically follow through with that student athlete. So I also think, and to Brett's point about the header, also, if you have highlights, if you have things that you want to send out, when you send those things out, it shouldn't be just, hey, here's my highlights, with the link. And, if you want to, not so much to make it easy on us, but you want to be as accessible as possible, with X and with Instagram, you can pin those things to the top of your thread there, top of your scroll. And I think making sure you put that in an accessible spot is huge. And Pat, yeah, we have had plenty of emails that said, "Love what you've done at Westchester lately," and so yeah, those aren't the best emails to get.
I would agree with everything that Brett and Justin just said. I think the bottom line is there's just more athletes than there are spots on collegiate athletic teams. So, in the same way that all the aspects of your athleticism and you as a student are having a bearing on our recruiting, social media gives you an advantage in some ways, but, it's also a responsibility that I don't really know many coaches that aren't looking at it. I have two part-time assistants, so it's not like we have a full-time person looking at it, but we certainly look at it. And in my small world of just, regional D3 soccer, I know of 3 different instances where 2, the program, and 1, the university rescinded an admittance because of something that was on social media. So just important to really take it seriously, understand it's your first impression, and use it for the ways that it can really help to advance your recruiting process.
Yeah, I would piggyback with everything that they said in regards to social media. A lot of the kids in our sport use it a ton on X. They DM our coaches. All our coaches are on there. We want those kids following us, and vice versa. But it's a way for those kids. They seem to be more comfortable interacting with us through DMs and Twitter than they are through a phone conversation. I don't know if that's just the way the student athletes are anymore. Yeah, it used to be phone conversations when I first started. Then it became texts. Now it's DMs. I think once you get into it really seriously as a student athlete, as a potential recruit, you need to pick up the phone and have a conversation with these coaches that you're going to spend the next 4 years with or 5 years with. I think that's important in regards to having a true relationship with a student athlete that you want to surround your team with. We're recruiting great teammates. We want people that are going to be are going to add to our culture, not take away from it. So we are looking at social media to make sure we're bringing in the right people. Just like we said earlier about the academic end, we want to bring in the highest academic kids that we can at Kutztown, because those are kids that are going to excel in the classroom, and it becomes contagious. We had our highest GPA this year as a team. It's something that we truly set goals for and want to do great at. And if we can surround ourselves with great student athletes, we're going to continue to build a great culture and win at KU. So it's really important for us. But in the end, it's that communication, it's that one-on-one talk, it's the picking up the phone, it's the in-person conversations to really get to know who you want to play for in the next 4 years, who you want coaching you, who do you is going to, make you a better person, get the best out of yourselves, both in the classroom and on the field. So it's a big piece of recruiting. Make sure you're putting all the right stuff out there. I wouldn't do anything silly. And if you do, you better take it down right away, because it could come back and get you.
That's
And
great.
Pat, if you don't mind me just kind of just adding one thing real quick too.
Sure.
I feel like I don't know if the other coaches agree, but it seems to be a recent trend as far as I'm concerned, that a lot of athletes will have their personal profile and then they'll have their athletic profile. And I think, like, you as a prospective student athlete kind of have to, like, I don't think when people are saying here, like, to be professional, we're asking you to be, someone who you aren't. You can still express your individualism. You can still be the person you want to be. And I think some coaches are different too. Like, I don't mind a highlight film that stands out, or something that shows you a little bit more. We don't want cookie cutters, but I think you have to be very careful if you have your sport account and then you have your personal account, you have a Finsta, you have all these other, fake profiles that you don't think people see, and coaches see that. And so I think that's something that's a little bit more recent, that needs to kind of just be corralled a little bit more, and making sure you're, again, putting your best foot forward when you are, because that's who you're representing. That's who you're saying you are.
Great advice. Thank you all. So we talked about some of you have mentioned scholarships and the way it works, and Coach Clements and Coach Hallman talked a little bit about it. But could we go into a little bit more depth? And Brett, if you could talk a little bit not only about football at Penn State, but a little bit about Division One, the way it works. Just football and basketball are a little different than the rest of Division One. But when it gets to you, if you don't mind talking about that. But Justin, would you mind talking about specifically with basketball Division Two, how many scholarships are available, and how it kind of like splitting up, and then also it was touched upon earlier about stacking academic money on top of that. So if you don't mind going a little bit more into depth upon that.
Yeah, sure. So, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't realize is different at the Division One, the Division Two, Division Three level. Um, Jim talked a little bit about it with Kutztown. So with women's basketball at the Division Two level, you're allowed 10 full scholarships, is what the NCAA max is. At Kutztown, we're working with about two, which was our equivalency. Now, yes, you can stack academic scholarships. You can stack different scholarships that you can apply for. The external scholarships that you may apply for that has nothing to do with the school, that doesn't impact anything as far as what we can offer. It's just added on top. There are some academic scholarships at Kutztown that are offered out to every student, regardless of whether there's not like basketball specific or athlete specific. It's a general scholarship that any student can apply for, whether they qualify or not. So we're kind of competing against the rest of the student body when it comes to those academic scholarships. And then some schools have, and we have a few of them, whether it be a housing allowance, or a different meal scholarship. So there are different things that are available that we can try to stack together to put together the best package for you. And obviously your own personal financial situation, whether that's state funding or federal funding, goes into that whole total package as well.
I'll hit on us. FBS football, you're allowed currently 85 scholarships. They are full scholarships for us. My time that I spent in FCS football, that was 63 scholarships that you were able to break those up, however, which way the head coach or whoever decides wanted to break them up. There is a lot of talks and legislation and different things going on right now about roster limits. They're talking about a roster limit of 105. So that means that you could offer 105 scholarships. Obviously, that comes out of a budget, so some schools will opt in to do that. But for us here, it's 85 scholarships. I will hit on, we have every single one of our guys file FAFSA for additional funding as well. So that's something we do here, and I did at the FCS level as well to get extra funding on top of your scholarship. But there's a lot of changes going on in college football at our level, so there could be some roster limitations and different scholarship changing coming here this summer. So
just for clarity, at the Division III level, there are no athletic scholarships. There's merit scholarships, there's institutional aid, and then there's need-based aid, which is why you'll file that FAFSA.
Yeah, we try to be as transparent as possible when we're breaking down our scholarships and our grant needs, when we're talking to our student athletes and their families. There will be we could have what's called a BOG, Board of Governors scholarship at Kutztown, which is full tuition paid. You could get up to $5,000 in academic scholarship, which doesn't sound a lot, but tuition at Kutztown in the state schools right now is $7,900. So that's almost, it's a pretty big scholarship. So we kind of break it down that way. And then we do have room and board scholarships that we can offer as well and stack. In the end, we'll add that FAFSA that you guys have been talking about. Brett talked about his guys are going to apply for FAFSA. If you're a zero EFC kid, you're a full need kid. The Pell this year, I want to say full Pell, full fee was close to $13,000 combined. So depending on your situation, you could be paying nothing out of pocket and only getting $2,500 athletic scholarship at a state school. It really depends on the situation that you have at home. And you have to understand too, parents, that situation is it could change year to year. You have to file every single year. So one year you may be getting a really good grant and aid from the state. And the next year you may only be getting grant and aid from the state and not from the federal government. So that's something that you have to do every year. And you have to understand also that when you're looking at these packages from other schools, they sometimes tend to hide some loans in those packages, which your student is going to have to pay those back. They might put in work study. They may put some other things in there to enhance it. But in the end, are you really going to take advantage of that work study in your first year as a freshman and play a fall sport? I don't know. So we try to be as transparent as possible. Hey, this is what you're paying out of pocket. This is what you're going to have in student loans if you decide to take them. And our tuition isn't going to go up. A lot of schools out there, they may go up 2-3% a year. The state schools in Pennsylvania haven't gone up in over a decade. So those are things that you need to look at, in the end, when you're at the kitchen table and you're trying to figure out what's the best place to send Johnny, what's school A, B, and C, what's it going to cost out of pocket? Obviously, that school better have what you're looking to study and the sport that you want to play in and what's your opportunity to play at that school. It's got to weigh big on you if you're a student athlete. But we try to be as transparent as possible. And we're going to uncover every stone that we can to try to make it affordable for all the families, just like every coach here on this panel. They're going to do everything they can to get that student athlete in their program if they really want them. But sometimes we're handcuffed.
Thank you. And I think Justin said it. People don't fully understand that at the Division I, 2, and 3 level, the way that scholarships work, the way that each team only gets a certain amount of scholarships, and how they break that down, and understanding the scholarship limits, the roster limits, all of that stuff is really important.
That's what I was going to say, Pat, too. Like, there's some conferences that have minimums, and each if we're dealing with basketball, I should say each team in that conference has a minimum. Brett can probably speak more about this, obviously, on the Division I level, but I think at his level, a lot of those programs are usually dealing with, in the same neighborhood as some other teams when it comes to just the scholarships. There's teams in our conferences, in our conference, in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, that are fully funded, that are in basketball giving out 10 full scholarships, that are giving out 6 full scholarships. And then there's some schools that are like us that are at like the 2.5 level. And so there isn't a minimum in some of these sports. And just because you're a D2 school doesn't mean that they all give out 10 full rides, or to Jim's point, 36 full rides. And that can change from conference to conference, school to school. The school itself decides how much resources they want to put into the athletic program, and then how that money is dispersed. We have 24 sports at Kutztown. So, judging how that is going to get spread out, again, is a school by school difference and a conference by conference thing, not just the level of Division I, II, or III.
Great. And Coach Calhoun, can I ask you an additional question here? You have a student or your student athlete who's your top recruit, and maybe their GPA is not exactly what it needs to be. Are you fighting more for that particular student athlete? Is there a contact that you may have in the admissions office that you're going to, or is that just something you need the student athletes to be at a certain GPA, or it's not an option for you?
We can have some influence on advocating for a student athlete's admission. But it would in fact be against NCAA rules to have any kind of influence over what kind of, like, can they get a bigger merit aid, or like, we can have no say in that. But we can certainly advocate for a student athlete here or there. We can't do it for 3 of them.
Right.
But yeah, for sure.
Great. Thank you. So I know this doesn't fall into everybody's category, but can we talk about the NIL? How much does the NIL, how does the NIL work, and how much of an impact does that go into recruiting your student athletes, making sure that you're going after or giving the student athlete what they need to come to your particular school and play for you? Brett, you mentioned you're heavily involved in the NIL at Penn State. Obviously, you guys had a great season, and with that comes more money. With that comes more, student athletes wanting to come there and probably demand more through the NIL process. So, if you don't mind talking about that a little bit, and then we'll move on to the other coaches as well. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I could talk about this for days. NIL, when they first came out with NIL, it was for, these student athletes to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. It's shifted, and it has turned into the Wild Wild West. So pretty much what had happened was collectives were created outside of the university. So for example, Penn State has a collective called Happy Valley United. What the collective does is they fundraise money, whether it's corporate sponsors, whether it's donors donating money, and in return, our players have to do deliverables to receive that money. So, to us and Coach Franklin, it was very important that every scholarship player on our roster got something NIL wise. He thought it was really good for the locker room. It was good for our camaraderie with the team. We heard stories of other schools, giving NIL money only to the top, let's say 10, 15 players. Here at Penn State, we thought it was important to kind of spread that, the wealth of our guys capitalizing off of their name, image, and likeness here at Penn State. It's really been like building a plane, and flying at the same time. There's new rules, it seems like every other week, but we're adapting and adjusting. In regards to recruiting in NIL, it's become very, it's very popular in high school now. People requesting money. Here at Penn State, when we recruit, we're recruiting the old way. We want kids to come for the great history of this school, academically, the coaching staff. You always hear it's a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision. We understand it's a factor in a decision at our level, but we don't want it to be the main factor. So, we know if a family comes in and the first thing they're asking about is how much are you paying me, probably not the best fit for us here at Penn State. Some other schools it might be, but we want the main thing to be the main thing. We want them to come here for the academics, to win championships, develop. We're a developmental program. We're going to develop high school kids, through their career and take care of them. And at the same time, we have a powerful brand where organically what NIL was supposed to be, their name, image, likeness, organically they're going to have opportunities, especially in the state of Pennsylvania. So I'm proud of how we do it, and our guys do very well. And but we don't want it to be the main decision factor. And I think that starts from the top down from our head coach. He wants it to be about what it truly is about, developing these student athletes, picking the school for the right reasons. But it has become, not that at some places, but yeah.
Yeah, we do not have any NIL at Kutztown. We spend more time, raising money for our scholarships, our limited budget that we have. So there have been some schools. I mean, Tyson Badgett plays for the Chicago Bears. When he was at Shepherd University, he was getting an NIL. He and his running back, were getting $25,000, which it's a lot of money for a kid back in 2022. So it could sound that's not a part of it. Where it would affect us probably more is our trying to retain our kids. We're a developmental program too. Like, we bring kids in from the high school, we develop those guys. I've got a running back that plays for the Detroit Lions that just re-signed. If the NIL and the transfer portal was around when he was in school, might not have graduated from Kutztown University. It's unfortunate, but I'm more worried about losing guys to the portal because of the possibility of getting NIL money, to be honest. But yeah, we don't deal with it. But if we had a kid that was able to get that, he absolutely could get that. I mean, it's absolutely something he could do, but it's not something that we have a department working on at Kutztown.
And Coach Calhoun's Division III does not have the NIL at the current moment. We don't know if it'll get there, but Coach Clements, you brought up a great point, and the next question I'll talk about is how has the transfer portal not only retaining your own players, but how has it impacted your recruitment of high school players while you're trying possibly to recruit other players through the transfer portal, whether you do that or not? So since you're talking about that, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's helped our program big time because we're recruiting high school players. We're not looking in the portal. We're all about getting high school players and bringing them up and developing them in our program. A couple things, guys in the portal, there's a reason they're in the portal or looking to transfer. Some of it's legit. Some guys may be at a higher level and aren't playing, and they miss playing. They want to play their sport. So they're going in the transfer portal maybe to transfer down. And in the past, that was how Division II schools did a great job, because you could transfer from Division I to Division II and play right away. But when this rule came in effect, now that you can transfer from D1 to D1 and play right away, those transfer kids going down are now going to FCS and going to other Division I schools, maybe from a Big Ten to a MAC school or Conference USA. So for us, it's enabled us to really spend more time with the high school kids, where you go into a high school and everyone's upset that people are looking at the transfer portal before the high school kids. We're the other guys waving the flag. Nope, we're the high school. We're recruiting high school kids here at KU. So it's helped us in that regard. In regard to us retaining our roster, we have lost a couple kids in the portal when it's first started, mainly due to playing time, not because they weren't starters and jumping into portal looking for something better. We did have a couple guys this year that one guy did this year went in and got a full ride at an FCS school. But we've been pretty good. So our culture is really good, and our guys want to, they enjoy it, but I could see it being a problem down the road for sure. And my look at it is like, hey, that's why we spend so much time recruiting you out of high school. We got to make sure it's the right fit. And if it's working out well and they're having fun and they're enjoying their time and they're doing great in school, where are you going to get that in the portal? That's where the NIL thing comes in. if you can get that somewhere else and also make six figures, go for it, Johnny. Best of luck, man.
I think here, I hit on it before. We're a developmental program. We're going to focus on high school recruiting. Trust me, we've gone in the portal for some veteran leadership and veteran players, but our core is high school recruiting. I would advise, if you're getting recruited, check out to see how many portal players a program has brought in from year to year, and it'll kind of show you their recruiting philosophy. I know sometimes you have a lot of guys graduating and there's certain circumstances, but I really believe it's all about developing those high school players. And for us, it's about recruiting them, developing them, and retaining them, because we're dealing with the same issue. People come in to try to poach our best players, because at the end of the day, someone is willing to give our players more money. Let's say we got to build those relationships. We're recruiting our roster every single day. As coach said, you can transfer to Division One to Division One. So we're recruiting our roster every day and making sure we're developing them and building those relationships, because at the end of the day, these players want to feel comfortable with the coach that's developing them. And like I said before, for us, a lot of our players, money, it does matter, but if you build those relationships and they trust you, chances are you'll be able to retain those guys. So, to reiterate, we're a high school developmental, we're high school recruiting. We develop them, and, we'll go into the portal from time to time if needed.
Yeah, for us, I've certainly looked in the portal, but I mean, 95% of my team are recruited from high school. The transfers that we have one, and that we've talked to are players that have reached out to us. For women's soccer, if you look in the portal, it's very D1, D2 heavy. But again, I mean, we like to say, not to steal Brett's line, but this isn't a 4-year decision. This is a 40-year decision. And we believe, we hope you come out a better soccer player. We believe you will, but more importantly, we want you to come out with the benefit of 4 years, a better person and a better leader and a better global citizen. So
I think there's a lot of coaches and just people in athletics that just don't like the portal because it it ruined things, or it really took a shot at loyalty. I kind of look at it the other way. Like, I'm a big fan of the portal in terms of if it's done the right way, and I think if coaches can leave and go to a better situation, then players should have that opportunity too, if it's a better situation for them. And I think one of the ways that we've used the portal, and we haven't used it too much, and the way I'll kind of explain it, back to the scholarship thing, if it's a Division I kid that is looking to transfer and come down to the Division II level, we don't have that full scholarship to offer them. So we won't be recruiting too much out of the portal as far as that's concerned. Back to the recruiting piece, when we have used the portal, and we've had a couple situations where we've recruited a kid in high school, we've built that relationship up for 2 years. They ended up going to what was a better financial situation for themselves, maybe a playing time situation, whatever have you. When we look at kids now in the portal, it is those kids that we have recruited prior, that we had a relationship with before. And so, as Coach Clements put out, like, you're on the portal for a reason. But if it's somebody that we know or we have a relationship with already, we saw them through high school, we know their high school coaches, their AAU coaches. That's where we actually have had success in the portal. Again, very few times, but it's people that we have recruited prior to when they went to college, not just some random player that just pops up on the portal.
Thank you. And speaking of, we're sticking with the recruiting process here, and all of you run camps, ID days, whatever you want to call them. What percentage of student athletes are you recruiting from those camps, from those ID days? When they're going through the process of trying to get recruited.
I can touch on that. For us, it's a huge ID clinics or prospect camps. one-day clinics. Those are huge for us in the recruiting process. We want to go out there, and they're not always at Kutztown University. Like our staff will go to Temple, we'll go to Villanova, we'll go to Delaware, Penn State, Rutgers, wherever, we'll go to some bigger schools. Lehigh, Lafayette, Lawrence First and Goal used to have a big recruiting fair as well. It's important for us as coaches to see them live, to see how coachable they are, to put them through some stress, to see how they react, to see what their body language is like, to see how they take to coaching, how they compete. Are they competitive? Do they want to get better? So it's important for us. We do a lot with that. We share a lot of information with other schools in regards to their testing and their size and their length and all that stuff. Specifically for us at Kutztown, if we have 80 kids at a prospect camp, half of those kids may be freshmen or sophomores in high school, right? And then the rest are juniors. We'll invite other colleges to our camp, so those kids are getting seen by other schools as well, because we can't take them all, right? But we want to give them a great opportunity to grow as a player. He may not be, he may be a 5'7", 195 pulling guard. He's not going to play for us, but he's getting better as an offensive lineman at the end of the day at our camp. So as the head coach at Kutztown, I made it clear to our coaching staff that it's a great tool for us to use to evaluate kids, but these kids have to leave our place growing in the sport, getting better at their position, learning something, taking something away from that camp so they can take it back to their teammates in August and grow. And that's important for us. But it's definitely a tool that we use at our school, and our coaches are out and about all summer at camps evaluating kids.
Yeah, so as far as basketball is concerned, we can't go from school to school the way that Coach just talked about. Obviously, we have the AAU events that we go to, but yeah, we run elite camps. We usually run 1 to 2 a year, and they've been huge for us. Kind of the way that we construct them, it's about a 4 or 5 hour day. We will typically we try to cap ours, which I think is a little bit different than some schools. They'll try to just bring in as many kids as possible. We try to keep ours affordable, but at the same time, cap it to like 25, 30 young women so that there is an actual evaluation process going on. We're not looking at like 100 kids. And so we'll run them through basically like a practice, and we'll have, our players there kind of coaching in some ways and helping them out through drills. We will, kind of stole from the football angle and put them through some combine like tests that we think really benefit us to see, where our players currently at and where these younger high school athletes are at. We'll have a question and answer session. We'll also have a separate session for parents to talk to our coaching staff to ask recruiting questions, some of these things that we're talking about tonight. And then we offer a campus tour as part of it too. And I think it's a whole inclusive thing in about a 5 hour window where we've had a lot of success the last handful of years. And again, as Jim said, you can't bring everybody, but from each of our, I think, last 3 or 4 elite camps, we've had at least 1 to 2. I remember one camp, 3 players who have ended up committing to Kutztown down the road because it gave us a really good opportunity to see them, to evaluate them, and for them to evaluate us as well in terms of what we do and how we operate our program.
I would say ditto to everything Justin just said. Our ID camps sound very similar. The only thing I would add is that for us, I would say it's my 3rd year at Ursinus. So of the 2 classes that I have in and the one that's incoming, 95% of them attended at least one ID camp. So it's really useful for us.
Yeah. For us, I'll hit on what Coach mentioned before. We have all levels at our camp. So the evaluation process, we're getting coaches from, Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. We also send out the testing to all coaches that ask for it, which is good for the prospect. 75% of our signing class last year camped with us, which was great. A lot of those guys camped multiple times. I will say this, if you're really thinking about going to a school and they're showing mutual interest and you go to their camp multiple times, it's showing us as a staff that you really want to be here and this is a play you're taking it serious. Because, at our level, you could go to every, camp in the country, but if you're coming back, trying to improve, trying to, whether you have an offer or not, you're putting in that effort. Your family's driving to whether you're getting that offer or just to develop as a football player. This year, our 2026 class, 100% of our commitments have been to camp. So it's a great evaluation piece for us. Live evaluations are the best evaluations. We have, people that come starting, ninth grade, and we see them until they're seniors. So it's great to see them develop, and we have their testing numbers when they got there in ninth grade to, where they are in 12th. So it's cool to see. I would definitely advise, go to multiple camps. I wouldn't say over camp, but go to multiple camps that have a decent amount of coaches there. And you can even ask who will be in attendance. Hopefully they have different levels there. So it's a good opportunity for you to showcase, your talent. And then, here personally, I think we do a great job of teaching, developing, these guys, and then obviously giving them a great experience.
Yeah, go to the camp that's your level too. You kind of brought up
Correct.
about the money grab thing. I know there are some camps within basketball that are charging $150 for a 2-hour camp. And I think you really need to talk to the coaching staff and see what's available there. I think if you're going through the recruiting process and you're being contacted by Division II and Division III schools, and you want to stay somewhat regional, paying $100 to go down to North Carolina, to go to Ohio, to go to Florida for all these camps because you got a letter from some school, that part is the money grab when you show up with there's 300 400 plus athletes, and it's basically like a glorified camp. In some ways, that is a money grab. If you're not having, as Brett said, if you're having mutual interest and there is a camp available, absolutely go to that camp to kind of really put yourself on the forefront and show how much interest you have in that school.
I think all of that was extremely valuable to hear from the coaches there. Justin, you said something that I think was stood out to me as somebody who works with high school student athletes all the time and parents. Is you said evaluate us as a coaching staff. That's a phenomenal piece of advice. I think that student athletes see the school, see the coach, and or see the name of the school and just want to say, or the division level, just want to say I want to be Division I, Division II, whatever. And evaluating the coaching staff is extremely important, and I appreciate you mentioning that, and even giving your student athletes, your prospects, the opportunity to do that. That to me is extremely valuable as someone who works with student athletes at the high school level. We have 3 questions in the Q&A. I'm gonna read them in order as which they came. First one is, once a student athlete has achieved a high GPA freshman through junior year, is reducing the number of classes for senior year frowned upon? So I'll just give a quick response. As long as they are hitting, from my lens, as long as they're hitting the NCAA core courses and the ones that they are needed to graduate from their specific high school. So the state of Pennsylvania says you need X amount of credits to graduate. North Penn High School says you need 23. State of Pennsylvania says you only need 3 social studies courses to graduate. We say 4. So as long as you're hitting our requirements, there's many different ways to show that you're still doing stuff, just not particularly in the class day, getting out and doing experiences through our work study program, through our CHIP program, internship program, or volunteering. As long as you're doing something, I think that there's ways to show that you're still involved. So that's my piece, but I'll let the coaches touch on that as well.
Well, I've seen it 2 different ways, right? I think if you have all your 16 core done, you're all good to go. Your GPA is 3.0 or better. You're in really good standing. You've been accepted to the school already. There's kids that are graduating in December and starting, in the spring semester at a lot of schools nowadays, depending on the type of school you're looking at. But I've also seen it on the other end where you were a borderline kid. You were right on that, Mendoza line where you're either gonna the admissions is still waiting to see your most recent grades. It's really important that you finish strong academically. You can't coast through it. And I'll talk to all my recruits that way in regards to finishing strong academically, because you're going to hear it from me for the next 4 to 5 years anyway. So wherever you're at in that senior year, you should be doing the best of your ability to get the best possible grades that you can. So if it's like I'm only taking a couple classes in the spring because I'm in an extended study hall, that's not frowned upon by us as long as you've already been accepted. And if you're doing well academically, it's the kid that really needs to get he needs to get a 3.0 in order to be get that core. You got to finish strong academically.
I would just say this is probably something that we don't see all that often. We're really looking for, to maximize the amount of merit money you can earn. We're looking for our student athletes to have, some honors courses, some AP courses. Quite a few of them are doing like dual enrollment where they might be taking courses at a college. But back to what Patrick said, I mean, work experience, internship type experience, we're seeing more and more high schools giving students opportunities to go, I don't even know what they call it, intern in a hospital or get some sort of hands-on experience. I think it's probably somewhat situational in terms of what you're doing instead of taking those courses. So I don't know that it's necessarily a black and white answer, but certainly want to see you aiming to grow and expand in some way in that senior year and not just mail it in.
That was a really good point too. I just wanted to reiterate there. Like, here's an example. At Kutztown, if you're a 3.0, you're going to get X amount of scholarship dollars. But if you're at a 3.3, you may get an additional $1,000, right? And that's $4,000 over 4 years. So if you're accepted with a 3.0 and you're really close and you finish with a 3.3 after your third marking period, then that's going to they'll reevaluate your coursework and adjust that academic scale for you to get more merit money. Now they'll close it. Usually it doesn't go all the way to the fourth marking period because they're making their decisions in April. But that second marking period to third marking period, if you can get your GPA up a little bit higher, that could get you in a totally different tier to get more academic money, which is going to benefit you over 4 years.
Great advice. One of the questions here is, can you speak to the redshirting process? When would it be appropriate? What are the rules? Brett, why don't you go ahead?
Redshirting?
Yes, redshirting. Can you speak to the redshirting process? Do you redshirt? How does that work? Is it appropriate? When is it appropriate? And what are the rules within the redshirting process?
Yeah, we go into when we're talking to our kids, recruiting our kids in summer camp. Everyone's got an ability to play. We're going to play the best 11 guys. So we've had freshmen play for us in the past, but there's also times where we decide, hey, we're going to redshirt this kid, and that's usually if there's a situation where we have injuries at a certain position, now they've changed our level. It took them a while, but they finally got us to where Division I is. Whereas in our sport, you could play up to 3 games and still get that red shirt. So if you're the third string running back and it's week 7 and you're the first and second string running back are hurt, and we need to use you, we can use you and you can still keep that red shirt. So we use that to our advantage at Kutztown to get those guys on the field in situations when we can, to keep the carrot in front of them, to get them more involved with the team. But that's been a huge advantage for our Division II level in football in the last 2 years. But the whole red shirt process is you gain that extra year. And for a fall sport, I could see the advantage of it. You may leave a little bit of extra coursework left to where you can graduate in that fall, December in your 5th year. We try to take care of those kids and fill those kids out at our place so they're not paying anything. That's where a lot of our money goes, to be honest with you, to our older kids, the guys that are starting and playing. But the red shirt process is totally, I've had situations in the past where I would go to a player and say, hey, we're going to put you in. You're going to burn your red shirt. What do you want to do? And if that student athlete would say, hey, I want to keep my red shirt, then I won't put him in. But I've never had a student athlete tell me that. They're always, coach, get me in the game. I'm like, all right, that's why you came to Kutztown. I get it. So that's a part of it too. But the rules now at our level, you can definitely get 5. Heck, now in Division I, I'm sure they'll be playing for 7 years, by the end of it. I'm sure Brett can tell us all about that. But I mean, it's crazy the amount of eligibility that these kids can get. But the red shirt process is pretty simple one at our level. I know at the Division III level, you can't red shirt unless you get a medical red shirt. And you can still get those at all levels, but that's the red shirt process for us.
Yeah, I would echo off of Coach. We're going to play the best players that give us the ability to win. And, we kind of have a system here at Penn State where we track every single player. And, like Coach mentioned, with us, it's 4, you can play up to 4 regular season games before redshirting. So, we track that each and every week. We know who's a borderline guy. So, like Coach said, we want to get them some reps. We want to make sure they're now with the portal. That's a big thing. Now you want to make sure that they're happy. So, at a certain extent, like, if you're up big one game, you might want to get that kid in there for some reps just to make sure he's happy. That's a factor in it now as well. But I think for us, we're going to play the best players that give us a chance to win. But it does give you the ability to get those younger players some experience without burning that red shirt. And for us, we played pretty far in the postseason. Those games didn't count against those kids as well. So getting them experience during the regular season up to 4 games for us, that gives them that experience, whether it's for the postseason or for the next year, gets them, under the bright lights and gives them experience. So.
And I think it goes sport to sport too, because obviously with football, the roster size is so much bigger. Obviously, with Coach Calhoun, obviously soccer a little bit bigger too. When it comes to basketball, at least for us, the amount of times that we've used a red shirt is more so like Coach Clements said with a medical red shirt. A kid has an ACL injury in high school or gets hurt in AAU or something, and either is out or might not be quite ready till second semester freshman year. We can use that opportunity to redshirt the student and then if possible stretch that out to a 5th year to when that could possibly help lighten the course load and kind of stretch that 4-year degree out over 5 years, which we've been able to do. And also the other side is to have a student be able to start their master's degree in their 5th year while still being eligible to play with the other undergraduate students, but able to kind of have some options to whether stretch that out, make the academic course load a little bit easier, or pursue a secondary degree.
Great. Thank you. Our next one is, and Coach Clements, you talked about this. You talked about conversations on the phone and being able to talk to someone, have the ability to react in a conversation. And I think that's something that the high school students don't do very often. But one of the kind of comments or questions was the professional recruiters, I would imagine, such as NCSA, discourage cold calling. How much does that play in a factor? Are any of you coaches against students just calling your office, student athletes calling your office, or is it, hey, that student took the time, got the courage to call my office, and hopefully I or one of my assistants or one of the other coaches on the staff answered the call. Is that something you say, kudos to that student. I'm gonna make sure I follow up with them.
Yeah, I would never say that would be something that I would deter. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. If you have if you want to, I answered a phone call today. I pick, when the phone rings, it's shocking. Usually it's my cell phone or a DM, but yeah, the office phone rings. I'm going to pick it up. Sometimes my coaches look at me like, Coach, you picking that up? Yeah, I'm picking it up. And I had a kid this year. He's a 2025 kid, an offensive lineman. And I got to talking to him about, hey, I'm like, look, man, our 2025 class is full, and we may have to, our roster limit's 105, and we're pretty high right now. I said, But I gave that kid some advice too. I said, look, we're full right now. I said, but if you really love KU, you know you're going to be here. You could always look to try out in the spring of 26. Or did you try school A, B, and C? I know they'd be probably looking for some opportunities for you to play there as well. So I'm just transparent as I can be with those kids. But yeah, I'll take a call. I answer the phone in my office. And if they leave me a voicemail, I'll get back to them. It's a rare thing. So when that happens, I'm pretty excited, to be honest with you.
I think I don't know, maybe I'm being a little cynical here, but I think professional recruiters would discourage cold calls because they want you to pay for the service. And I think like, I actually had someone text me the other day, a parent, that there was a basketball service. It costs $1,800. Is this something that you recommend? My kid, I think, is more of a D3 skill set, low D2. I'm sure a lot of coaches use them. I know we will look at some emails, but I can't tell you how many emails we get from scouting services about a kid in Idaho, a kid in Nevada, a kid. Now, listen, we're probably not going to get that kid too much that's going to come to Kutztown. And a lot of times, a lot of coaches will just delete those. I cannot encourage enough. You are spending enough money. This is my personal opinion. You are spending enough money on hotels and getting into AAU events and high school events and paying for everything. Do not spend that money on a scouting service. I think that um, it is you look at it and it sounds really good, and they can put together a package, and they'll do all the work for you, and it sounds really good, and you may not think you can record the highlights well enough or put together something that stands out. To Coach Clement's point, a phone call does not cost you anything. A simple email. A lot of coaches love looking at highlights, but I know myself and a lot of other people, they want to see you live. So send your schedule. Say, hey, can you come evaluate me? This is what I'm interested in. A personal email, a phone call goes, in my opinion, a lot longer than just a general email that certainly was sent to possibly, 50 coaches. I personally do not think it's worth the price that a lot of these recruiters are charging.
Me personally, I think it's awesome when they reach out because, like everyone has said, it doesn't happen often. And to be completely honest with you, I don't even know if we have phones in this building. It's all cell phones. But if someone calls me, I'm going to answer. If they leave me a voicemail, I'm going to get back to them because it's rare at this point. But I would say be respectful. Don't be calling them a couple times a week. That's a little bit overkill. But reaching out to coaches and finding ways to get in touch with coaches is awesome. And if they don't answer, try someone else. But I would just say be very careful. It's not overkill.
Yeah, I would echo everything that was just said. I think to add on to what Justin was saying about recruiting services, I think some of the best ways to get an idea of where you can play is to go see games at the level that you want to play. If you're lucky enough to have a coach who is, high school coach, club coach, and someone in your sports orbit that has familiarity with the college level, to sit down and have a really honest conversation about, hey, what level do you think I could play at? Okay, then go watch them play, and try to be as honest as you can with yourself. And the other question you have to ask yourself is, are you the type of athlete who's going to want to come in and have a chance? There's no guarantees, right? Have a chance to play in your freshman or sophomore year, or are you someone who's like, I want to go to this level and I don't care if I never play. I want to be able to wear this jersey. It's where my mom went, where my dad went. It's my dream school. So I think there's a lot of factors to consider that you can kind of ascertain on your own. And the other thing Brett mentioned earlier about, I can't remember what the question was, but it was about looking at the roster. Oh, looking at the roster to see the transfer portal. A question I get a lot is, how many do you carry on your roster, or do you play freshmen? It's like, I do. And you can check me on that, because you can go check my statistics and look at my roster and see the freshmen and see how many games they started and how many games they played. So there's a whole lot that you can do independently with a little bit of knowledge without paying $1,800 for a recruiting service.
And I just want to echo what Coach Calhoun said, because I think that's, if you don't hear anything else, that's so important. Like, go watch the school play. Like, you have so many opportunities that a lot of these sports are streamed online. You can do it, but go in person. We get so many calls or emails. Hey, coach, I got a kid that can definitely play at your level. And it's like, you've never come and see a game before. How do you know that? And so I think that's extremely important. And the roster thing, I agree with too. Like, specifically to North Penn, I mean, we recruit, when it comes to women's basketball, we recruit heavily in District 1 in the suburban league. And like, we want kids that have played top competition, that play, hard schedules in the suburban league, Philly Catholic League, in that area. And you can look at our roster, and it'll show that. You can see, what kids are on our roster through the years. But yeah, please go. If you think you can play at that level, whatever that level is, go watch the game.
Great advice. I'm gonna meld two questions here, and then we got one more after that. So, student might not have had a lot of playing time in their high school career, or might just get a chance to start senior year, didn't get a ton of playing time prior to that, regardless of the sport. How likely is it that they have a chance to play at the next level? And I think Coach Clements, you talked about, he had a kid call you today earlier, a lineman. He class 25, he's a senior, he's graduating, in 3 months. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, but any other advice to a kid who's struggling to help figure it out, a senior who's trying to play at the next level? Is it, do you recommend JUCO? Do you, and not that you're sending the kid to JUCO, but hey, here, maybe a couple years, go play somewhere else and give us a call in a couple years, kind of that stuff. Is that stuff that you do, stuff that you see from other coaches? If you could touch on that.
Yeah, it's all based on a lot of it based on position too. Like, we might have had a kid that played soccer and then went out a senior year to be a kicker and is kicking the heck out of football. And we didn't have him on our radar until we saw him late in the fall. Or there's a dual sport athlete, a great wrestler, great defensive lineman, had his heart set on wrestling, wanted to go to Penn State and be a national championship like 17 times in a row, right? And then realized that there's all these gold Olympians wrestling at Penn State. So that wrestling piece might not have happened for that kid, but he still has the love for football and he wants to go back and play football. And it might have been a late decision. If those kids are good enough, we'll make room for those guys in that regard. And we love dual sport athletes at Kutztown. We think that's awesome. At least we do in football. I don't know about basketball. In football, we do.
We do.
But yeah, the kid that is a late decider or a late bloomer. We've had kids go to prep school. We've had kids go to Lawrenceville. We've had kids go to Pennington, Hunt School. And a lot of those schools give you financial aid packages as well. They're very expensive, some of the schools. But if you qualify and if you're good enough, they can pay for that. I had two prep school kids this year that joined us in the spring, one from Lawrenceville and one from the Hunt School. So it's possible to go on to not just a JUCO, but a prep school too.
And
But I would look at the finances. I would look at that, and then you have to weigh it out. Is it worth it? Is it going to be worth it? But those late bloomers happen.
And Coach, I think you were talking about me. I don't think you remember this, but you recruited me at Del Val. I was a punter at Neshaminy. I only punted 1 year. I ended up going to Lackawanna College, and then I got a full scholarship to UMass. So it's definitely possible.
Were you there with Charlie Martorella? When were you there?
I was there with Kevin Kelly was the kicker, and I was the punter.
Okay.
And I came up to visit, and you recruited me.
Coach Schmitty?
That's right, man. So there's always a chance. I was that story. So I would echo Coach. If you're really passionate about it, you'll be able to find a place. And from there, just go in there. Like here, I wanted to mention, like when we're recruiting a kid, one of the main things we want to know is, does he love football? Because at this level, you need to love it because it's a 24/7 job. So, if you really love football and you're not getting the looks you want, try to find a place where you can play and, prove it from there. But I think there's an opportunity for anyone, whether it's prep school, junior college, you name it, you can find a place to go to.
Great connection. Last one, and I think that we talked about this a little bit, but Brett, you mentioned go to camp, come multiple times. Now, is that multiple times in the same year? Like you might have a spring and a summer camp. Is that overkill? Or is it like, every summer you're coming back from 9th through 10th, 11th and 12th? That kind of stuff. Is going multiple times in the same year, spending too much money? Is that a little bit too much?
Yeah, it is a lot. I think, I mentioned if there's mutual interest, and let's say you get a true evaluation where the coach says, you're a borderline guy, but we just need to see more, or we're going to evaluate your film, your junior or senior year. Like I said, like we've had guys come for our first camp and come to fourth camp, they showed up every time. Our coaches like coaching the kid, and he's gotten better each time. It's duly noted on our database. Like he came each and every time to get better, and he got better. Make sure we evaluate him. And we've had so many times that it's happened where kids end up getting offers after they attended multiple times. But I would say be smart about it. Make sure you're having legitimate conversations with the position recruiting coach, maybe even a meeting with the head coach. And if they're saying you're a border guy, I would, and the other thing is we have different level coaches, like I said, and there are different schools there every time. So, I hate to see people drive, 5-6 hours to Penn State, 4 or 5 times a summer, but we do have different coaches each time. So it is worth it. But, I would say don't overdo it. But if you think you're a borderline offer kid for us or another program, and you really, that's a program you want to attend, show them that you want to attend there. And that's my opinion on it.
But if I could add to that, what Brett had said too, like I said, our coaching staff, we go to a bunch of different camps. And sometimes it's funny. I'll go to Monmouth camp on a Tuesday night. And I'll see a defensive back. We love him. He's great. And then Wednesday night, he's at Villanova. And he looked better at Monmouth than he did at Villanova because he just camped 3 days in a row. He may be a little worn out. You got to make sure that when you're going to these camps, you are going to be in your top physical condition to give it your best. You don't want to go in worn out. You don't want to pull a hammy. You don't want to do something to injure yourself. So I would do a good job of really spreading those out so you're at your peak athletic performance when you go to those camps.
Yeah, I agree on that.
I think that's great advice too. We'll have, an elite camp in the summer, late end of the summer, and the kid will also be playing with their high school basketball team for summer league, and then on the weekends they'll also be doing their AAU tournaments, and the overuse going from camp to camp is just killer. I would say in terms of the visiting and multiple camps, I don't think the multiple camps at our level is necessary, but I do think like if we're interested in somebody in recruiting, like we'll have them up to campus for a football game for that experience to watch our conference champion football team play and have that whole experience. If they want to come up separate from a campus tour, like on their own, if they want to, come up to different events on campus, whether that be an academic day or an accepted student day, I think coming up to campus in different avenues is really important too, to really kind of get the full exposure of what that school is, what that school provides. I think that's another way to come up multiple times without going to the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and lastly, I would just add, we have smaller camps. We have about 30 at our camp. And I just lost what I was going to say. Oh, we give evaluations. We will email you evaluations. Not super detailed, but definitely clarity with regard to, do we think that, you would be a good fit for our program? And if we really don't see it as, especially if you're a junior and we don't see it as a viable option, we would let you know. So I would just guard against, we have kids come to multiple camps. However, if you're not getting any feedback and you're not, maybe your emails aren't being responded to, at some point you have to say, maybe this coach isn't interested. maybe the coach is wrong, but either way, if they're not interested, then you want to go find somewhere where you're going to be valued. So I would just read the room in that respect. But we've had, we had a junior commit in November, and she'd come to like 5 or 6 ID camps because my goalkeeper coach is amazing. But there's nothing wrong with that. But just make sure, if you have endless money, I guess
Yeah.
go wherever you want, right?
I will hit for our level as well. There will be some prospects that come to our camp and won't do specific drills or testing. It's not a good look, and trust me, we it's a red flag goes up. So if you're going to go to these camp, make sure, like Coach said, make sure you're healthy. These numbers are going to be in our database, so make sure you're at your peak. And I wouldn't sit out any drill. This, for us, this isn't the NFL Combine. We want to see prospects compete and not sit out, because it is a red flag for us if there's certain things that they won't test on.
Thank you. I have one last question that our AD, Mr. Kyle Berger, had asked me to say this, and we both kind of forgot about what it was, and it was touched upon by both Coach Clements and Coach Hallman. In a world of year-round sports, in a world of youth travel sports, my own daughter plays U8 soccer, and she hasn't stopped. Now she plays multiple sports, but the fact that my 7, now 8-year-old is playing soccer from August and it'll end in June. Talk to me about how much you love to see a multi-sport athlete and how much it helps their athleticism within your sports, or the flip side. You know what? I need a kid playing this sport all the time because, like you said, they got to love it.
Yeah, I'll hit on that. Maybe it's because I was a multi-sport athlete a long time ago in high school, but I love it. It's a box that they check for us. If that's a wrestler, if he's playing basketball, if he's playing baseball, men's lacrosse, to me it's huge. So it's definitely something that we look for, and that's a box that we check. That this is someone that can be coached by multiple people. This is someone that can be an athlete and use his body in a lot of different ways. This is someone that's a competitor that wants to be that, it's going to be a great teammate and can be a great teammate in a lot of different avenues, in a lot of different arenas. So it's huge for us. It's hard to do it at the next level. But even it can happen. I mean, Division II level, we had 2 players for us this year. Had a freshman DB for me, the red shirt for us, but was made all PSAC as a freshman as a triple jumper, was one of the top 10 in the country, and we had earmuffs, Brett, earmuffs. I had a wrestler who's an All-American. He's the best player in our league, defensive player in our league. He decided to go out for wrestling because he was bored in the winter, and he made All-American. I mean, he pinned the #1 heavyweight in the country at nationals and got 5th place in a wrestleback. But I mean, I think that was awesome. It was one of my best years. I had 2 guys that were competing in other sports at our university and doing great things for Kutztown University outside of football. They did it for our track team, they did it for our wrestling team, and they were great at it. I thought it was awesome. And if we have kids that can do that, I'm always going to encourage that. So I'm pro multi-sport athlete guy. Now I get worried when he's wrestling. Trust me. Watch your knees, right? But with the world that I live in today, like Brett was saying, you got to keep these guys happy, right? You got to make sure that they're, I didn't want to tell him no and then all of a sudden go somewhere else where he could do it. Like, no, you want to do it here? I'm going to support you in everything that you do.
It checks a box for us. We love when our recruits multi-sport athletes. Other thing we look at is team captains, checks another box. We want our guys being active. You'll see on social media, our coaches go to basketball games, wrestling matches, track meets. It's something that we want to see. We almost question if they don't play another sport, but we understand that some kids want to focus on one. But the more you can do, the more you can show us, explosive movements. That's what we're looking for, especially evaluation and, team building and things like that.
I think that from our perspective, I agree with both coaches, but also from an injury perspective, there's just more balance. There's just more cross training. I mean, we're a very heavy quad sport with the running and the striking of the ball. And so when they're playing other sports, there's just often more balance and less injuries. We have a
Our first technical difficulty of the night.
Looks like we lost Coach Calhoun for a second here. I was on one of these a couple weeks ago. My son unplugged my computer. I didn't realize it, and my whole computer died. So, Coach Hallman, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll speak until she comes back here. I think just to piggyback on what Coach Clement said, I think it's a personal preference thing. I played baseball, basketball, and football in high school, and I think it's something that I certainly look for in other athletes. I think like he said, when it comes to college athletics, it's a little difficult to play multiple sports. Specifically in our sport, in basketball, it goes both in the first and second semester, so a little bit easier to do it in some other sports than ours. But I mean, we have on our team right now, we have a member of the state champion girls flag football team from in high school. We have multiple all-state volleyball players on our team. I think I'll let Coach Calhoun talk about it, but the injury prevention thing and is a big thing, and not overusing those. So yeah, definitely multi-sport athletes. It's not I wouldn't say it's a red flag if you don't, but it's certainly not a red flag if you do. And I think that's something that we look at, as both Brett and Coach Clement said, about the competition aspect, the ability to take coaching from different people, and the ability to have another interest. The burnout rate is extremely high when you're just playing the same sport over and over and over again. And I think that actually at times lowers the competition drive, because there's always another game. There's always another game to play, and I think when you play those other sports, kind of keeps those competitive juices somewhat high.
Coach Calhoun, we lost a little bit, but if you want to go back to the injury prevention and the quad heavy piece of soccer, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know where you lost me. I was just rambling away here, but I'm sure you covered it. Injury prevention, well-roundedness. I think a greater perspective sometimes. Different sports require different things, so it's a bonus. We limit it a little bit because I don't want to lose my whole team to a spring sport. So we kind of have a certain number of slots for spring sport athletes, but it's great. I love them.
Great. This was just unbelievably knowledgeable for our students and for our families to hear. I want to thank our coaches for taking the time on a Thursday night to spend with us and take the time to impart their knowledge to our student athletes and their families. With that, thank you all for coming out. Thank you to the coaches again. I appreciate all of you. I wish you all the best of luck with your recruiting, with your next season. And, I look forward to following you and rooting for you down the road. North Penn families, as I mentioned a few times, with the NCAA Eligibility Center, that's something I work with the students and the families. The stock letters that I have, I can share with you, with students individually. Please don't hesitate to reach out. My email address is Brett, BRETT, P as in Patrick, F as in Frank, @npenn.org. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. It is better when I know that our student athletes are looking to play college at the younger age, as opposed to when they have gone to a college and call me and say, you never put my transcript in the NCAA Eligibility Center. And I said, you didn't tell me you were trying to go play at the next level. So please be, as you're trying to get recruited and trying to be, proactive in that, please do the same with me. I want to thank everybody again. Please have a great night. I would say drive home safe, but you're already home. So have a great night. And thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you.